It's all catching up. Look, you and me, we've been onto this for a long time, but things are so bad that even the fake news can't deny it anymore. All these crises, and obviously Joe can't handle it. Look at these poll numbers. Finally, we're getting a realistic sense of where this guy stands with the American people. Yesterday's speech at the UN did not help matters at all. He was at times angry. They tried to make not using the military until the last resort sound like it was a new idea. Every president says that's how they'd like to do things. Actually, for the most part, it's been that way. Some key exceptions. When he returned to the White House, things got bizarre, and I think he lost one of his most important constituencies, the media.
Harry Cole from The Sun.
Mr. President, he asked him a question.
I'll take it.
All right, so he's sitting there with Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of the UK. There are a bunch of reporters in the room. I think we have a picture from another angle. Yeah, the place is loaded with cameras and microphones and reporters from the UK and America. Boris Johnson is game to take questions, and he does. Joe Biden, of course, is freaked out by questions and doesn't.
Would it be okay if we just have a couple of questions, just a couple of
Good
questions and I think we're going to be ruthless. I'm going to be ruthless. I'm going to go to Harry Cole from The Sun.
Okay, that's what a leader does, right? After you say a few things, you take some questions. Joe Biden can't do it. And you know who's starting to get embarrassed? All the American reporters. They see how it's done in the UK. The American reporters are like, yeah, we haven't really even asked a question in about a month. More.
We're going to take one more question. I'm going to go to Beth.
And Joe Biden, the leader of the free world, is just along for the ride. Now, the press, they're getting mad. And the press workers, those who work in the West Wing for Joe Biden, they're getting a little freaked out too. They actually interrupt the Prime Minister. Watch what happens.
Unbalances the Belfast Good Friday Accords. That's the Belfast Good Friday Agreement. That's the. I think that's
Sounds like a pet shop in there. That's a bunch of staffers. They started, thank you, that's cue to everybody out. They interrupted the Prime Minister. Look, this was bad. And the White House correspondents, they were very, very embarrassed, and they wrote a stern letter. They actually formally objected to all of this.
The U.S. press pool immediately launched a formal objection to that. It is not protocol necessarily to have that kind of uneven distribution. Typically, you have the U.S. side and then the foreign press representatives getting an equal amount of questions there.
Yes, but again, they're just embarrassed. They're embarrassed that the UK reporters were able to ask Boris Johnson whatever they wanted, and they could not do the same thing for Joe Biden. And that's the way he rolls, right?
May God protect our troops. Thank you.
Mr. President, what kind of impact does it have when celebrities like Nicki Minaj?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we're all familiar with this. This is how he does it. But again, that key constituency, the media that have been covering for him, explaining, spinning for him, I think they've had it.
President Biden is facing major challenges and major questions this week. The growing crises engulfing the White House.
How about a message from our vice president? Where is she? She was supposed to be in charge of all of these migration issues, going to those northern triangle countries. That's obviously not Haiti.
This camp inside of the United States with thousands of people. What is the reticence to call something that is so clearly a crisis? A crisis.
You look at what's happening with immigration. You look at France now saying that they've been betrayed by the United States. So I get that we have to look forward, but what are we doing to justify or explain what appears to be very bad behavior on our part now?
We don't see it that way.
All right. So this is all too little too late. I mean, the press, they had their chance They're supposed to ask the tough questions during the campaign. Remember when Joe was in the basement and they just went along with it? He was protected in that little cocoon, and whenever they did get a chance, they protected him. They coddled him.
When you hear these remarks, suckers, losers, recoiling from amputees, what does it tell you about President Trump's soul and the life he leads?
Let me ask you about another thing the president said last night. He once again suggested to his supporters that they should consider voting twice if they're in one of those states that can allow you to request an absentee ballot. Just curious what you make of it.
Just running that by you. What do you think? Care to insult your opponent, Donald Trump? They were all throwaway questions. They're all very easy. And now that there's a crisis, and now that we see Joe Biden can handle it, what happens next? I'm not so sure. We have squalor at the border, all these poor people. Nobody should live like this. And they seem strangely content with it all. This would have any normal person who's in charge all over it, totally on top of it. The numbers who are there, the numbers of people there, where are they going to go next? How do we fix the situation? Check out this. The Department of Homeland Security Secretary, his name is Mayorkas. He's clueless.
I want some numbers here. So again, 1.3 million people. How many people have been returned? How many people are being detained? How many people have been dispersed to all points around America?
Senator, I would be pleased to provide you with that data.
I want them now. Why don't you have that information now?
Senator, I do not have that data.
Why not?
For me.
Why don't you have that basic information?
Senator, I want to be accurate in the information.
I'm looking for ballpark figures. Is it about half? Have we dispersed about half of that? Are we up to about 600,000 people we dispersed?
Senator, these are the tools that we employ. We use the Title 42 authority, that is the public health authority, empowered by the Centers for Disease Control to expel individuals in light of the...
So I'm hearing that you're not using that to the full extent, and that we've got 40–50% of people, even apprehended under Title 42, that are not being returned. Is that accurate?
That is actually inaccurate.
All right. It's bureaucratic gibberish. There are about 10 to 15,000 people there. How about giving us an official number? How about telling us where they're going, when they're going to get there? They either can't or they don't want to. I think this is a combination of incompetence and dishonesty. So people have been getting on buses, by the way. Have you heard about this? Haitians getting on the bus and being sent all around the country. And a lot of them don't like it. Take a look at what happened on one bus ride. Put it up on the screen, please, full, if you don't mind. What did the passengers do? They fought with the Border Patrol agents on board. They attempted to overtake the driver. They forced the bus to stop, and they all ran away. Now, there's a reason that may actually make sense. Take a look at this. In Haiti, in Port-au-Prince, the capital, a lot of folks found themselves surprised to be there, surprised to be in Haiti. Now, they're being deported from the United States. Why would Haitians be surprised to be back in Haiti? Well, a lot of them came to the United States, not directly from Haiti. They've been living for years in places like Chile and in other countries in South America and Central America. Anyway, when they found themselves in Haiti, they were very upset. We had an incident. Let's go ahead. Let's see. On one flight, they assaulted the pilots and 3 ICE officers, stormed another plane, threw shoes and belongings at the plane. Now, again, a lot of these folks haven't been in Haiti in years, but now the U.S. government has sent them there after indicating they would be accepted. This poor man, listen to his story.
Mon cher, situation qui a développé là, société d'Haïtiens qui quittent le Mexique, qui quittent le Brésil, qui quittent le Chili, qui allent aux États-Unis. Vous prenez les États-Unis, vous faites partie pour tout Haïtien entrer. Premier ministre en personne ici, pour tourner tout Haïtien dans le pays d'Haïti, dit qu'il a occupé.
I feel for him, very much so. And this is a man-made crisis by the Biden administration. It really is. But as horrible as this individual's plight is, guess what's receiving more attention? The horses at the border.
This morning, the growing crisis and the new investigation launched over these images of border agents on horseback confronting migrants.
And in one case, an agent on horseback can be seen grabbing the shirt of a migrant, appearing to whip him. as he desperately tries to escape.
Outrage grows over these images. Border agents on horseback confronting migrants.
The Biden administration struggling to explain images of agents on horseback confronting migrants on the Rio Grande.
The Department of Homeland Security is now investigating this incident where Border Patrol agents on horseback are seen intimidating Haitian migrants at the southern border.
All right, so we've talked to the Border Patrol. Last night, we talked to the man who was in charge of the horses for the Border Patrol for the past 20 years or so. The technique used, they're not whipping anybody. They are keeping people away from the horses, which can be dangerous in certain situations. And if you look closely at these pictures, you don't see a whip hitting anybody. You see the man's hand on his T-shirt. From another angle, you see it gently placed on the man's shoulder. But the fake news and also the Biden administration, they are making a fake news story even worse. They're giving it an air of legitimacy. Perhaps worst of all is the entitled, the lazy, the look at me, I'm the VP.
What I saw depicted about those individuals on horseback treating human beings the way they were is horrible. And I fully support what is happening right now, which is a thorough investigation into exactly what is going on there. But human beings should never be treated that way, and I'm deeply troubled about it.
You know, I'd like to see Kamala go to the border and try to do it herself. These men are doing their job. She is not doing hers. We all heard the President of the United States pointed right at her and said, "This is your responsibility." Now, behind the scenes, she must have said, "No way." She hasn't been to the border in any serious way. She went to a mall in El Paso, Texas. She didn't go to the hot spot. And she's made light of it. She's made light of it.
Just quickly put a button.
Okay.
Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, you know, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making.
Everybody understands the point that he's making. Listen, we obviously have a crisis. Let me ask you, I'll think about this myself. If I were the vice president and I had the power, I had the status, I had the authority, I had access to Air Force Two, a jet at my disposal, you know what? I'd go. Anybody who cares would go to the border. What else is she doing all day long? Quite frankly, she's not doing much at all. She's flipping coins at the football game. I'll get to that in a second. She loves traveling on jets.
I'm sorry for dripping, but drip is what I do. And one of these days, I'm sorry for dripping.
This was a TikTok thing they put out during the campaign. Look at me, I'm getting on and off private jets. And now she can get on and off Air Force Two, but she won't take it to Texas. Why not? I don't think they want the problem solved. I think they want the cheap labor, and they want these folks coming in so they can ultimately, they think, determine how they vote, or maybe even vote for them. Things like that have happened. She was at the ball game, some college game, flipping a coin this weekend. Why was it such a crisis under President Trump when it was a million times better than it is now? They all went. Remember the crying, the hysterics, the AOC, boo-hooing? Where is she now? What's happening? It's all a game for them, but not for us, and not for those poor people at the border. We'll be right back. Ooh, guess what? The laptop that we knew was authentic, the fake news is finally acknowledging, yes, it was the real thing. They can do it now because Joe Biden is safely in the White House.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.